In this video, I will show you how to sketch accurately from a photo. You can grab a piece of paper. In my case, it's going to be watercolor paper because I'm preparing sketch for painting and this is my reference photo. For this technique, reference photo needs to be the exact same size as the paper size. If you don't have a printer, because sometimes I don't like to print my references, I just work with my iPad. It is even simpler than printing out a reference photo of the exact same size as your painting. You can zoom in on your reference photo to make it the size that you want. In my case, this size approximately, and then you can do print screen, and this is the photo that I print screened, and this is the default size that I will use. I just display it on the iPad and use iPad instead of printed reference to measure. But let's use the printed reference today. If you'd like to draw along with this video, I've made a free post on Patreon where you can download the reference photo and read a quick overview of the process. You will find the link down below in the video description. I will try to keep them side by side like this. I'll also be using a kneadable art eraser by Faber-Castell, and this is Kohinoor eraser in a pencil, so these two will be here. To make this work, we'll have to establish where the face is going to be positioned. So I want to position the face here, here. Let's say that here is where this cheek starts. I make a mark. So this is where the cheek will start. I also want to know where the hairline starts. And that depends. You can place it wherever you want on your paper. You can put it a bit more towards the top of the painting. So I think I will just I'll position it like the photo here. So this is the hairline. This is where I decided the hairline will be, and this is where I decided that the cheek will end, so that I have some room here for the hair. Now these are important marks, and now we can measure from here. So I first want to measure the distance from the end of this cheek, like here, at this point, to where the ear sits, so here. I grab my pencil and I get this measurement to my pencil, and then I put it here. So now I know that this is the basic width of the face. Now we can measure how wide the ear is. Like this. You put your pencil there with your fingers. The tip of the pencil needs to go here, and you just grab the mark with your fingers and you make a mark. So this is how wide the ear is. I can gently, just lightly sketch that this is gonna be ear. This is where the hairline is. Let's measure the entire height of the face. It is this big from the hairline to the chin. Like that. I remember roughly that this is where the bottom of the face needs to go. Now we can measure and find the eyebrows. They kind of sit on a tilt, so this distance will not be the same as this distance. We have to measure both. So let me just measure first this approximately. So here is one point. The other point here, I don't even know where this line would be. I want to measure from this point to this point. It might be similar than it was here. Yeah. So now we know that the eyebrows will be slightly on this line. Let's find nose. Nose is one of the most important features. When I place the nose, usually that helps me to place the eyes and the mouth. So we need to find the base of the nose. The base of the nose is this part. It's like below the entire nose. We have to measure what's the distance of that line from the chin. So I take this measurement and I put it here. So this is the nose. Now we have the line for the eyebrows. We have the line for the nose. Now we need to find the corner of the nose here, this part. This point, from this point, how far apart they are. So approximately here. This is where the nose will begin. The nose will have a triangular shape. And now I need to find the entire size of the nose from this part to this part. So probably this. If you want to, you can measure even from the tip of the nose to the base. But for me, these distances, they can be easily freehand. So I just try to get the most important points, and then from there I will freehand everything. I could do the nostrils already, at least approximately. I do not have to measure like every millimeter. The most important features needs to be measured first. This looks weird. Let's continue. We'll get the hang of it. This is a 3/4 view. That means that the central line of the face divides the face in two parts that are not equal from the point where we are seeing this portrait, which means that this part of the face, we see it a bit larger, this is smaller. I basically need to find what is the size of this part of the face, the entire part that contains the eye and the eyebrows from like this root of the nose. So I will do a point here and I will try to measure. It might be approximately here. But also, let's find the corner of the eye in relation to the base of the nose. You following me? Yeah, this here. So here's the corner of the eye. Here is where the eyebrows will end. So let's sketch it lightly. So let's sketch these eyebrows. By the way, here is the point where the cheek will end. This is a line. This is the line, but the head kind of turns away from this line. So here we also have to do a bit less, like that. So that helps me to draw rest of the face. No, that helps me to position the brows. So here is one eyebrow, and maybe we could do the line for the forehead here. Now let's find the other corner of the eye. Like this. Is that correct? By the way, this maybe I measured wrong, but this looks not quite correct. No, it's slightly higher. This is slightly higher. Sometimes I need to measure twice. Tip of the nose, but the corner will be here. Since we have one corner of the eye, let's find the other one, this one. That one, if I do a straight line, should line up with this part of the nose, the side of the nose. Like that. Now we could do a line here for the eyes. I can now place the other eyebrow. We already know that this line is basically the top of the eyebrows, so we can just sketch them. This again, I'm sketching freehand, but we can measure where the eye and the eyebrow end here. This is what I like to measure very often. So here, this will be where they end. So we have eyebrow 1, 2. We have corners of the eyes. Let's tackle the eyes, because the eyes, they tend to be the most difficult part to sketch in almost any portrait. So the key to sketching eyes, in my opinion, is not to sketch the curve, but to try to find the straight line. There are straight lines to be found in this shape. Straightest line probably is right here. This one. It almost aligns with the entire eye line, so we can start there and sketch this one. And then the line starts to return back up here and it shortens, so I can sketch another straight line there. Another straight line will be here as the eye opens, And what I like to do with the eyes is not to sketch this part before I sketch this triangle, because triangles and straight lines, they're easier to sketch, always easier than curves and circles and ovals, which are incredibly difficult for the hand when you are still practicing. It's difficult for me still after years of drawing, so I like to do the straight lines like this. This is a triangle and I can clearly even see its shape. So here I sketch that one. And then again we have another line here, another line. I can define it by this straight line. And then we have this line here. Looks quite straight to me, this one. And then another straight line. And then another straight line here. One more time on a separate piece of paper. Instead of doing this and doing this and doing this, you try to find this line as a straight line, then this part of the curve define as another straight line, then the upper part not as a curve, but try to do a straight line, and then here another straight line. Instead of this, try to do a straight line here, then straight line here, and another straight line like this. And then you can connect the straight lines to make a curve. But now the curve will be more defined. Here as well, I will define the triangle. Here is small part that will be dark, but now I can do a more solid iris. So this circle will be more solid, will have more of a base than this. And I think I will get much better shape than I would if I used the curves. So this is how I think about drawing these really tricky parts of the portrait. Okay, and then same but very soft line for this part below the eye. We can keep it raw like this because I don't like to refine the details before all of the features are placed, because I might have to move them at some point if I measured incorrectly or something does not fit. We'll start to see the portrait emerging. Let's do the other eye. Let's do a straight line. I see two more straight lines. I see another straight line here, and straight line here, and a triangle. Like that. This eye is a bit more open. And then here another straight line, another one, and connect. Let's leave it like this for now. We will refine later. One thing that's missing is the mouth. We have to do some basic measurements again. The mouth, we'll see it right here in this area. That's the lower third of the face. For this part of the head here, we can also define as another straight line, because this is the point that we measured here. This is the point here. And from that point, we need to do another straight line. And here another one, so that we get an accurate silhouette of the face. Let's now measure the distance from the chin to this part of the mouth and then this part of the mouth, so that we see. By the way, it's easier to measure when you have a bigger portrait, like this is quite small for me. So this is the one, and finding the upper lip. No, that does not look right. This is the entire distance, so maybe the face needs to go a bit lower here. If you have one measurement that's a little bit off, then you have to remeasure so that everything really fits. Okay. Now it fits. So this is the upper part, lower part. I can find the upper part of the lower lip, if that makes sense, here. And we need to find corners of the mouth. So the upper part, lower part, then this part of the lower lip, because the teeth will go here above, and we have to find corners. If you want, you can measure one corner and the other corner from this side. Might be even easier. I just like to do straight lines from the nose to see which part of the mouth aligns with the corners of the nose. Here you see this part. If I make this line and this line, then here and here, this will be the corner of the mouth. On the other side as well, there's more. If you do straight line here, there's a bit more on the other side that we see. So this and this. And now we have to do the teeth, which are quite difficult. We have to carefully draw this part of the upper lip. And again, let's try to find straight lines here. Straight line here, straight line here, straight line here. And then you don't draw the entire like division between the teeth. You just lightly suggest that it's there from the bottom and maybe even from the top, but you don't connect. Here, here, and here. Like that. We will have to correct slightly later. There will be the shadow. Basic facial features are placed. Let's do the entire context before we try to refine this part. We need to find where the face ends on this side. So I will take measurement. This I like to measure. This is the part that can be tricky. Again, try using straight lines. We have to figure out where the ear ends. So this part where the ear, where the bottom part of the ear, it usually lines up with the nose, but the face curves. So there's gonna be a slight curve, but the bottom of the ear usually aligns with the bottom of the nose. So if we do a slight curve, we can just eyeball. This is not so important, 100% important. We need to have some sort of logic there, but it does not have to be 100%. And there's the neck here. The neck on the other side. I just watch for this size, but I can freehand it because that's pretty easy to see how wide it is. And then for this part of the neck, I just look where it lines up. So it lines up with this part of the mouth. So you can just draw it here. You can measure the height of the neck here if you want to. Like that. Here's gonna be hair. Here's going to be hair. And from this hairline, we can also do the hair. This part I do not measure. I feel like I need to be more freestyle with the hair. This part also. This is the first part of the sketching process. Maybe I'll just freehand some parts of the ear. The ear usually has if you do a oval here in this part, that is what accurately can define this part of the ear. Or you can do like an S here. So something like an S in this part. So this is the rough part of the sketch. It is always about measuring, comparing, and it does not look like a trace in the end because you went through the entire process. It might not be so easy maybe at the start, but as you practice, you do 5 portraits with measurements like this and you get used to the entire process. Then you maybe start measuring a bit less, so you can just measure the size of the face, the width of the face, you still have to do the work of measuring everything, comparing everything, and that actually hones your drawing skills. This is just the first part. Let me now grab the kneadable eraser and let's do the refinement. I love kneadable erasers. They help me clean out the sketches without destroying my watercolor paper texture. There are so many erasers that when you use them in this process, they can mess with the texture of the watercolor paper and does not exactly react like it's supposed to. Especially for portraits when we draw much more than for any other subject. Yeah, get a kneadable eraser for these. Oftentimes I have to correct some proportions because I measured incorrectly or just does not feel quite right. Or as because I want to make the sketch my own. On my Patreon, you will find over 60 real-time sketching and drawing tutorials just like this one, where I explain every step and thought process while drawing different types of portraits. There are also more than 50 watercolor portrait demos, portrait beginner lessons, and creative challenges to help you grow. I've also shared watercolor workout exercises and resources for artists, like how I photograph my art and make art prints. And if you join, there's a warm community space where you can share your works and get personal feedback. If that sounds like something that can help you on your art journey, you can check it out. The link is down below. When I lighten the sketch, now it can feel slightly closer to the reference image, but for the refining process I no longer use this pencil but mechanical pencils because they work better on watercolor paper when it comes to smaller lines. Let's first start with most important things, and those are the eyebrows, so I want to get to as close as possible to the actual shape. And I even use some light hatching to help me get the tone there. So I have these straight lines here. I think I went a bit too much on this side, like the eye could be slightly smaller. So I will try to... We can measure if we are unsure. That's too large. I can measure from one to the other side. Yeah, now it's about right. And I will even draw in the eye. I will draw the pupil. Here is the reflection. And upper part. Here I have to clean a little and refine this line to make it closer to what I'm seeing on the reference photo. I can sketch a few of these lashes because they define the eye in this case so much, because she has makeup on and they appear larger here as well. Usually the eyes, they display the thickness of the bottom eyelid. Now I don't really see it very much, but that's probably because of the angle of the face. We're looking slightly from below. Here is like the root of the nose, and the shape of the nose is going to be like this. And these points I want to slightly get rid of. And then from here to there, and the pupil, like the iris. Here the lashes will be really prominent. And here as well, there's going to be some part below the eyes. That looks pretty okay so far. And here I clean up the line, like the silhouette of the face here. Let's do the nose. So we know the points. We measured that here is the top of the nose, like the tip of the nose. Here is the bottom of the nose. So the shape of the nose would be something like this. Here is a highlight. You can even draw the highlight slightly. And here is going to be lighter part. We can mark, but we don't have to. What's important is this part here that contains the nostrils. I did this line just to help me find the top of the nostrils because they should align here. This is done. Here is going to probably be shadow, but we'll do that in the painting part. The mouth here is the strongest and the most dark line for the mouth or lips is between them. So here, and the corners, and here there's shadow that's not so dark, but it can be pretty dark. It defines the mouth. So here's also slight shadow. Make sure that this line is always the strongest, this middle line. Here we have that part defining the teeth. Have to be very careful around here. The teeth, they can get weird. You have to be careful. Never connect. Let's try. Let's try to connect. Looks weird, no? In this case, not so much, but I don't like to connect. We can leave it like this. Just suggest that there is a division. Like here, here. Yeah, and this is just like bottom lip. And we can even suggest the division from the top slightly. Top lip usually gets slight more hatching, so it gets a bit more darkness than the bottom lip. This corner is going to be less visible because of the 3/4 view. Lips, they curve around the face. This corner will hide slightly. Refining the silhouette. Refining here the neck and the lines on the neck. And I'm doing just more and more freehand. I'm making the sketch more and more my own. And here for the ear, again, connect the straight lines, refine. We can do some slight hatching in the areas that is slightly darker. Like here, here. We are slightly darker in this area. Darker in here. I want to emphasize some parts because now it's more, at this stage, it's not more about the drawing than the photo reference. But now I want to make some lines a bit more dark. Especially she's got such depth in around the eyes, so I want to emphasize that. And that mouth too. And finally some lines of the hair. I do not do too much drawing when it comes to hair, because usually I just do those textures with the brush. Yeah, but maybe I want to just know how far they go. Like here. Here they're pretty close to the face, but here this part is pretty much what defines the entire composition, is this line of the hair, the lighter line of the hair. Like that. I think the lips should be slightly less thick at the bottom, so this one I think we could adjust to be slightly smaller. I did some smudging. Here maybe we are a bit too far. Also, the neck does not have to be so wide. Last cleanup. This is my final sketch. This is as close as I can get to a reference photo, honestly. I make some mistakes. I think it's pretty close, but it still has that hand-drawn feel. And that is very important to me, that my paintings do not exactly look like a copied photo. I just wanted to show you this process so that you can practice. This is not how I always create my portraits. I sometimes freehand the portraits if I do not care so much about the accuracy, but sometimes I draw or paint somebody for either, like, it could be a commissioned piece or it could be someone that I know and I want to be as close as possible, and in that case I will use this technique. Let me know in the comments if you found the tutorial helpful, and share one thing that you struggle with the most when drawing your sketches. I would love to hear from you. And if you'd like to learn how to paint a watercolor portrait in 5 simple steps, here's the video that I recently made that walks you through the whole process. I will see you in the next video.